What is up, Buffalo Fanatics? Z-Bot here with you, live on the Buffalo Fanatics YouTube channel on a Wednesday night. And that, of course, can only mean one thing. It is the smoke break. Good to have you in this hump day evening with voluntary OTAs officially underway. We are officially less than 100 days away from the regular season kicking off. 99 days from today, the Philadelphia Eagles will host the Dallas Cowboys to kick off the 2025 NFL season. We are nearing ever so close. I told you when the schedule came out, it's when it really starts to feel real. And you get the rookie mini camp right around that same time. Now you're getting voluntary OTAs. Then in just a few short weeks from now, you'll get into the mandatory session. Then it's training camp, preseason, boom, the season is here. But we are officially less than 100 days away, but who's counting? Tonight we talk about what's going down now, though, and that is those OTAs, voluntary session. What's the latest out of Buffalo? We'll talk Joey Bosa. We'll talk James Cook. We'll talk Cole Bishop, Elijah Moore, Joshua Palmer, Sean McDermott's comments on Hard Knocks, and whatever happens to come up in between. That's coming your way tonight here on the Smoke Break. Hope everybody is doing well. Once again, great to have you in tonight. Last few days of May as we turn the calendar over to June, starting to feel like summer. Hope you had a great Memorial Day weekend, a great Memorial Day. I know I did. First Dave Matthews show of the summer in the books with Caroline out at Bethel Woods. If you haven't been, you got to put Bethel on your bucket list, especially if you're a music person, if you live in the New York area, which I know a lot of you guys do. Bethel is awesome. It's the site of the original Woodstock back in 1969. It is a historic venue, not just because it is historic, but, you know, based on, I don't know who determines this, the state, federally, I don't know. It is considered to be a legitimate historic site. They have an awesome museum on site. They've really done a great job renovating it. Really great winery type place up at the top. Just an awesome place in the middle of nowhere. You'd never know it was there. You got to go off the beaten path, get off the highway, and drive about 20 minutes deep into the woods to even find the place. Once you get there, though, always a ball. And then Memorial Day actually caught a great day, which was nice. I don't know about you guys or where you're at and what the weather situation's like down here, downstate New York. It has been brutal. Overcast and rain virtually every single day, which for what's felt like the last 2 weeks. It felt like it was needed. Feels like we hadn't had a stint of rain like that for a while. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it came and it has not gone away. Luckily, it cleared up on Monday. But when we went to that show on Saturday, man, it was 45 and raining. Luckily, we had a good time. I know it's more difficult to do that when you're kind of freezing in what's supposed to be a summer-esque type venue, type situation. But nonetheless, hope you had a great Memorial Day weekend. By the way, I want to let you guys know, especially those who are in here early. I know the majority of you who are in here early and often, you're going to love this. So we have some new stuff coming your way from the boys over at BF. We've been putting our minds together, me, Bobby, Pierre, Rico, trying to find a way to give back to you guys as much as we possibly can. And we're going to emphasize that this upcoming season. So be on the lookout with an announcement coming soon. We'll get into the details of everything probably Friday or maybe a little after that. Rico and I might touch on it Friday, but we got some new membership perks coming your way. And not to let the cat out of the bag here, but we are going to be doing, for the first time in a long time, first time that I've been a part of it, a members-only monthly stream with call-ins and topic selections on your guys' end. It's going to be awesome. We've been trying to figure out ways to really give back to those who have given so much to us, and we're really looking forward to doing this. And that's just one of the many perks that we are going to be implementing within our membership program coming up here this season. So very excited about it. But that monthly members only live stream is going to be awesome. It's going to be the whole squad, members only, call-ins, topic selection. Going to be great. unlike anything we've really done before. And it should be really exciting, fun stuff. So be on the lookout for that coming down the pipe here soon. All right, let's talk about OTAs. The sessions are underway. Kicked things off yesterday. And a lot coming at you at once. A lot was there to be. I actually kicked off, yesterday. I was going to say, the Memorial Day is throwing me off. It is Wednesday. It feels like a Tuesday, but it is Wednesday. A lot came at us rapidly. Some good, and some, I don't know if it's bad. It's not good. It's something, as Colin Cowherd likes to say, everything is something, nothing is everything. And I don't know if Cowherd actually coined that. He just says it all the time. But it's true nonetheless. And we had some really, glimmering, shiny, bright spots out of the early practice sessions here, and a couple of things that I don't think are shocking to anyone, but certainly something nonetheless. And it's going to be interesting to watch develop as time goes on here. Let's start with the one that was out of everybody's control. And that, of course, is Joey Bosa. Joey Bosa already injured before taking even a practice rep with the Buffalo Bills. Now, we go back to when the Bills signed him not all that long ago, about a month and a half ago or so. We go back to when the Bills made that signing, and everybody had two initial thoughts, right? One, Joey Bosa, household name, and when he's healthy, still one of the best in the league. When Joey Bosa is healthy, one of the best players in the league at getting after the quarterback. But, of course, the caveat in that sentence is when he is healthy. And the reason you have to preface that when talking about Joey Bosa is because it's a rarity that he's fully healthy. Joe Biscaglia reported earlier in his comments on OTAs. Interesting stat that I did not know. We all know Joey Bosa's history. Did not know it was to this extent. Over the last 3 years, Joey Bosa has only been available for 55% of all games throughout the last 3 seasons. 55% of the last 3 years. He's missed 23 regular games in the last 3 seasons. The Bills knew what they signed up for. And they've been looking for a guy for the longest time. We talk about this all the time. They've been looking for that difference maker to get after the quarterback. They've tried drafting it. They've tried signing it in free agency. They've yet to find the guy. And when they don't have the guy currently, and we're looking to see if that emerges this upcoming season, maybe Landon Jackson fills that role. Maybe one of these guys already on the roster takes another major step. Greg Rousseau, Ed Oliver, AJ Epinesa perhaps. Or, we get one of these new guys in addition to TJ Jackson on the interior that winds up stepping up, being that guy that everybody taking snaps is fearful of. But the Bills have been trying to find that, and in the meantime, trying to homegrown that. They've been looking for stopgaps. Von Miller, of course, the most obvious, the most prevalent. Joey Bosa is the new iteration of that. And when the Bills signed him, the first thought you had, in addition to being excited, which I'm sure many of you were, I still am, the first thing you thought of was, can he stay healthy? I think everybody assumed that there was going to be the risk of Joey Bosa being injured at some point based on his history, as I just mentioned. 55% ability in the last 3 years. It's almost as if he's 5% more available than he is not available. Best way to put it. You knew the risk being taken there. Kind of goes to show you what the Bills are willing to gamble on right now in order to find that solution. Everybody knew that there was going to be a risk there. I don't think anybody anticipated the risk to be this prevalent this early, before you even get to mandatory OTAs, before you even get to training camp. Joey Bosa already hurt, and it's looking like he is going to be sidelined until training camp. And then once we get to that point, we'll see what happens from there. But it seems as though, as of right now, it's almost a certainty that Joey Bosa will be missing the mandatory OTA session, will be out until at least training camp, and then hopefully then he's able to get reps in with the Bills defense, the first team defense, and have his bearings underneath of him to be ready to go in the regular season and so on. I liked the signing. I still do. And I think Joey Bosa is going to be impactful for this team. Not ideal to hear that he's injured this early. But if it's going to happen, and let's hope it doesn't happen again, if it's going to happen, in late May is when you'd ideally sign up for it. And if he is able to be healthy come training camp, and I'm not saying he's got to be 110%, but if he's good enough to go, get reps in, get an understanding of Sean McDermott's defense, how they want to utilize him, sort of just get a feel for what the year is going to be, then this is going to be an afterthought. If we get to training camp, Joey Bosa's out there, like I said, maybe he's not 110%, but he's good enough to get out there and get his reps in. What's currently going on right now is going to be an afterthought. Pulls a calf while working out last week, and Sean McDermott, when asked about this, like I mentioned, said he's going to be out for more than likely the foreseeable springtime at the least. McDermott would go on to say it is concerning. Durability, availability are key ties to our roster. So we basically look ahead in terms of what he's doing now, which is getting himself the treatment that he needs, and he's working hard at it. That's all he can control right now, and we get him back when we get him back. A couple of things to dive into in terms of this. One, this is no shock to anybody. When it happened might be the shock, but in terms of him pulling something, getting injured, missing time, this was something that came with what you signed up for. Getting him available for training camp matters in the sense that you want him to understand what his role is going to be, and you want Sean McDermott to get a good idea of what the rotation is going to be surrounding Joey Bosa and how they plan on using him in an impactful way this upcoming season. If you don't have the ability to get a read on what that looks like before the season starts, it's hard to get that read while the season is already underway. Now, we're talking about a veteran here. This isn't like a guy that just came off the street who's in his second year in the NFL. We know when healthy, there's no concern on Joey Bosa being impactful. And I don't have a concern on him being impactful for this team when he is available and when he is healthy. But I just want him to be able to get the vibes of the defense, new team, new situation. I want him to be able to get adjusted to that prior to the season starting. Because once the season starts, I just feel like that's a tough time to get adjusted, whether you're brand new to the league or whether you're a vet in Joey Bosa's case. You'd much rather be a vet in this situation. And because he is a vet, I think it's much more likely that that adjustment is much faster. But you still want to have him available during training camp in order for him to get ready to rock for the upcoming season, not just in terms of his physical ability, but also, of course, because you want him to have an understanding of this defense, how they're going to utilize him. And you want Sean McDermott to have the ability to understand what the rotations are going to look like. You know, if he's not available, like McDermott said, you got to look forward. You got to move on. And they're going to do that, even if he's slated to be available week 2. And obviously right now, from what we're being told, it doesn't look like it's going to extend that far in terms of how long he's going to be out. But say, for instance, he does miss training camp. You get into the season, and it's just not an ideal time to get acclimated. That's why you really hope he's ready to rock in some capacity to where he's able to get reps in during training camp. But let's talk about what everybody wants to talk about when it comes to this. Is he going to be available when it matters most? And that's really all that I care about. When I heard that Joey Bosa was hurt, my dad was the first person to tell me. My initial reaction, I really wasn't irate, pissed, upset about it. That's not because I'm heartless. I feel bad for Joey Bosa. I feel bad for anybody who can't get out of their own way in terms of the injury bug. I don't understand how certain people can't go a year without getting injured. Meanwhile, other guys go their whole career barely getting banged up. It blows my mind. I feel awful for those type of people, especially guys with the athletic caliber of a Joey Bosa, where if he was healthy 100% of the time, well, he wouldn't even be on the Bills right now, because in all likelihood, he would have remained a Charger. If you're healthy 100% of the time and as impactful of a player as he is, you're not being let go as easily as maybe you would be if you're only available half of the time. I always feel terrible for guys like this. But when I heard that he was hurt now in late May, the reason I wasn't taken back by it like I would maybe if it was another guy on this roster that you never hear of being hurt and all of a sudden they're hurt and you're trying to figure out what that's going to look like because you're not used to it. I'm not concerned because I need Joey Bosa healthy for a handful of moments on this team. A handful of moments. And if Joey Bosa, based on the schedule that we had revealed to us a couple of weeks ago, if Joey Bosa can't go till November, you're not going to see me sitting on here crying about it. I need Joey Bosa available for a couple of major seed swinging games in the AFC. And then, of course, January football and hopefully February football. You'd love to have him for Baltimore. You need all the help you can get trying to get after Lamar Jackson. Every team in the league does. There's 31 teams in the league that wouldn't mind a little extra help trying to get after one of the most mobile, prolific, athletic quarterbacks we've ever seen play the position. But I think that without Joey Bosa, the Bills can beat the Jets, the Dolphins, the Saints, the Patriots, the Falcons, the Panthers. We've been over it, including the bye week. That stretch right there takes you to the first week of November against Kansas City. Let's rule out week one. Now let's include week one. If I look at this schedule, I need Joey Bosa for 5 games. There's probably 5 or so games that I think are going to have a major, major impact on the AFC seeding. And to me, those games are just as important as playoff games to some degree. I need to see what this Josh Allen-led Bills team looks like in the postseason without having to play in the wild card round. You've heard me bitch and moan about this time and time again. As soon as the Bills got good was the instantaneous moment that the NFL decided to get rid of the first round bye for second seed teams. There couldn't be a more ironic situation on the planet. The Bills are towards the bottom half of the league the entire time that a 2 seed locks you in for a bye. As soon as they sniff any bit of success, as soon as they get to a point in which they would have been rewarded a bye week multiple times now, it no longer exists. We don't know what this team would look like without having to play a first week. We don't know what this team would look like playing a home AFC championship. It has not happened. And as great as Josh Allen is, I'd like to see it happen. Because when you get to the postseason in the NFL, the toughest postseason in all major sports, you're watching it right now. Connor McDavid and the Oilers about to go back to the Cup. Panthers going to try to defend it, right? You're watching the Knicks blow it. You're watching the Thunder dominate. But they're doing so over 7-game stretches here. That's what's the beauty of the NFL. It's what makes it second to none. It's one and done ball. And every moment matters just as much as the next. And if you have the ability to guarantee yourself a home path all the way to the Super Bowl, in addition to not having to play in the first round, you're signing up for that. No kidding. But the way I see it, the way I'm sitting right now, viewing my Buffalo Bills, viewing Josh Allen in his prime with this team that's poised to win it. What's it look like if they have that much more of an advantage? That additional advantage that they have not had, because they've come this close without it. Is that ultimately the difference? A week off, healthier because of it. A home AFC championship game. 2 losses in the AFC championship game, both on the road. Now the response could be, well, they had the Chiefs at home in the divisional round. They lost that game too. I get it. AFC championship in Buffalo with Josh Allen. Think about it right now. The chills are already standing up on me. We've talked about this. The fairy tale it would be to witness that in the final year at the Ralph. The easiest way to obtain that is getting the 1 seed. Really, based on how great the AFC is, the only real way you're going to obtain that is if you do get the 1 seed. Because in all likelihood, that 2 seed probably not going to be good enough to get you that home AFC championship game. We saw it last year. The Bills went 13-4 last year and still did not get a home AFC championship game because the Chiefs somehow every week, whether they were playing terribly or whether they were playing terrifically, lost 2 football games. One of them, the only legitimate one, snapping their 15-game win streak at the time, the Buffalo Bills. Chiefs had 1 legitimate loss last year. In a year where the Bills win 13 games, they were still 2 games shy of a home AFC championship game, a bye week in the first round, the 1 seed overall. So I want Joey Bosa out there for those games that I think are going to play a major role in deciding that margin of error, that 2-game margin of error that holds the Bills out from the 1 seed, drops them to the 2 seed. Did the Bills win the AFC championship game last year if they're home? I don't know, but it's a 3-point game. It's a 3-point game. Ask Vegas what the advantage is in their mind when they're setting the lines. Ask them what the advantage is for the home team. And almost always, it's 3 points. If Vegas is setting a line for the Bills at home versus the Bills on the road, in all likelihood, the home game, the Bills will be favored by 3 additional points than they would be on the road. Would they have won it? I don't know. But you can't tell me that the home crowd in Buffalo, one of the best in all of sports, wouldn't be maybe that much more of a difference to get you over that 3-point skid that you couldn't hop over in Kansas City. Handful of games on here that I think are going to be a major factor. Baltimore week 1, Kansas City coming off the bye, Cincinnati. You could argue Philly, but I've talked about this game. Week 17, a really odd placement for that game. Might not matter as much as maybe it would if it were early in the season, plus non-conference game. Maybe it won't matter as much overall. But in reality, 4 or 5 games on here that I want Joey Bosa out there at his best. Other than that, if Joey Bosa isn't playing, or he's playing 15% of the defensive snaps, I'm not going to get on here and complain about it. I'm not. You know it, and I know it. This team needs the most help in those single elimination games where, unfortunately, that has felt like they've come up the shortest. And in reality, going back to when they first signed him, one of the initial thoughts I had was put him in bubble wrap until January. Because you could live without him having to play in those 4 or 5 games that I find to be the ultimate tipping point between maybe the 1 seed all the way down to wherever they wind up, 1 through 4. Because you win your division, you're in the top 4. And I can't listen to an argument right now where the Bills aren't winning the East this year. You'd love to have him for those games, ideally. Like I just went on a rant about. The 1 seed to me matters. We have yet to see it. How much more of a difference will that make? Could it be the ultimate difference? But the playoffs are the pinnacle. That's where he needs to be healthy. So I wouldn't risk anything here. He's got to come back super healthy for me to really rotate him in a heavy style to kick the season off. Yeah, you'd love to have him in Baltimore. And to me, that's one of those 4 or 5 games that you're going to want to have under your belt when the season comes to an end. But call me foolish. I don't think I need Joey Bosa running ragged in the next 6 games after that. I would approach this situation with some caution. You're already getting the signal here. Pulls a muscle while working out. We're not even talking about taking snaps here. If and when he's fully healthy, no matter when that is, I would approach this situation with some caution to ensure that I'm getting 100% Joey Bosa when I enter in to January football. To me, that's all that matters here, and I think that that's where he is going to be the most impactful for this team. That's when they're going to need him the most. It goes without saying. But I'm also factoring in the Bills' schedule here, too. I do think that they have a luxury here, especially in the first half of the schedule, where you do not need to put a ton of stress on a body that's susceptible to injury after injury, like that of Joey Bosa's, the first 8-9 weeks or so. I don't think it's necessary. Yeah, of course, you want him out there. You want him getting live game reps, and you want him to have an impact for this team week in and week out. But when you know that you're talking about a guy that has almost been as unavailable as he's been available, I would approach this situation with far more caution than I would any other situation. You brought him in for one thing and one thing only, and that is to make a play or two that is the ultimate difference in single elimination games in the postseason. Preserve the ability to have that impact in your arsenal when you go into the postseason. Yes, of course, you want to see him play. Yes, of course, you want to utilize him, get the most out of him, 100%. But we already see an injury here late May. Come regular season time, yeah, get out there and dominate against Baltimore if you're 100% healthy. But just because he might say he's fully healthy and you go to Baltimore week 1, just because he's healthy week 1 and plays a ton in that game, to me, that doesn't mean you need to see him play as much in the following weeks. And I know it might look like I'm overlooking a bunch of these teams, and I'm trying not to, but that's the confidence I have in this offense and Josh Allen and this team overall. And I've seen the difference. Eyelash thin between wins and losses in the postseason. And if I have to risk not having Joey Bosa's impact, however much that might be, during a handful of regular season games, as opposed to having that full impact in a very small amount of games that matter the most, sign me up for that. Certified saying, you talk like Joey Bosa's Deacon Jones, for Christ's sake. As if anytime Joey Bosa takes the opposing field, the offense will wilt. Too funny. No, I'm not trying to paint that picture. Although I do view Joey Bosa very highly. When he is healthy, he has one of the best pressure rates in the league. But ultimately, what you're saying, it's funny because this is kind of how I view the Bills in totality. They don't need prime Deacon Jones. They just need one or two more impactful plays. And if I have a guy on my roster that I know is the most capable of delivering those two plays that we haven't had in the biggest games on the biggest stage, primarily against the Chiefs, if I have my best ability for that much more of a marginal difference, I hope I have it to the fullest extent when it's needed the most. I talk about him the way I'm talking about him because I think that he is the type of player that could be that much more of a difference maker. Is he going to go out and completely flip the game on its head? No, but the Bills are good enough to not need the game do a 180 because of the defensive performance. I have enough trust in Josh Allen in this offense, especially in the postseason, to do enough to put this team in winning position. And I really do think that on the other side of the field, it does come down to a couple of plays. And I think Joey Bosa gives you the best opportunity based on what they currently have at getting after the quarterback. He gives you the best possible opportunity to make one or two additional plays. Marino saying Bosa is a lottery ticket, and that's how I view it. And if you could increase your odds on cashing the lottery ticket at the highest dollar amount, wouldn't you? Now, I don't want this to come across like I'm talking about benching Joey Bosa for the entirety of the season. I know that's not a great idea either, because then you get him going into January. Yeah, he's healthy, but he's barely played. I'm just saying you don't need him out there as the primary edge rusher week in and week out. We know what he can do. He's a proven veteran player in this league. We know the capabilities. I don't think it needs to be proved over a 17-game schedule when you know he is as susceptible to injuries as anybody has ever been. Yes, get him in there. Yes, you hope you get the most out of him while you have him. They didn't pay him nothing. But you want to double down on the ability to have him available when it matters most. And I think you're already kind of getting a warning sign here. It's this early, already pulled something. We're going to play him. We're going to get the most out of him, but we're going to do it in a logical way. Especially with that season. Or especially with that schedule lined up the way it is. You're not approaching anybody with this idea that you're just going to roll all over them. But if I read you off the left side column of this schedule, I mean, we've been over this. Yeah, Baltimore. It doesn't get harder in week 1. But when I list off the Jets, the Dolphins, the Saints, the Patriots, the Falcons, the Panthers, I'd like you to find me even the biggest Bills hater on the planet who can make a logical argument to me that the Bills are losing more than a game during that stretch. And if they do lose more than a game over that stretch, well, then something's significantly wrong. And I would argue something's far more wrong than what Joey Bosa is going to be able to fix, if that makes sense. If the Bills, over a stretch in which they play the Jets, the Dolphins, the Saints, the Patriots, the Falcons, and the Panthers, if they lose 2 or more games during that stretch, the Bills have far bigger issues at hand than the impact that Joey Bosa will have on the field. And so because of that, I think that risking his availability and impact in the postseason for those games in a degree in which you are playing him far more than maybe you should. And Videsh is saying it needs to be treated like Von Miller, and I agree with you. I think this is already going to be the approach. But even to that extent, I'm saying I don't even think you need Joey Bosa in there on every single obvious passing down. Game to game is how I'd treat it. Game to game. Even feeling out the game itself. You know, say he's fully healthy for Baltimore, and all of a sudden the Bills are up 21-0 at half. Yeah, maybe I'd scale back on how much Joey Bosa is going to be playing in the second half. Say you go into the Saints game, and out of nowhere, the Saints are up 17-7 late in the third quarter. All right, well, Joey Bosa, maybe more playing time today than we anticipated going into the week. You play it week by week. But I'm just saying I would treat it with far more caution than I would any other situation. You have a solid asset in your back pocket to be utilized in January. Hopefully it's there to the fullest extent to be able to be utilized. But for right now, Joey Bosa, already hurt prior to even the start of OTAs here, voluntary OTAs, likely going to be sidelined until training camp. And then from there, we'll see what happens. Like I mentioned, hope he's healthy for training camp. We get a good idea of what his role is going to be. McDermott gets a good idea of how he wants to utilize him. And obviously, of course, Bosa gets a good idea of what he's in for, what he is going to be contributing to this team throughout the season. So best of luck to Bosa on healing up soon here. And then hopefully ready to rock in what I hope to be not the biggest capacity from September to December. Really ready to rock when the snow's falling and every game is do or die. Laura coming in. I bought my round table ticket. Let's go. Buff, whoop Miami again. Laura, give yourself a round of applause. That is awesome. And you just beat the buzzer. Because I was actually just filling in for Dan over on the AFC East roundtable before I hopped on here. I was filling in with Kobe, TD, and Richie. And they informed me, I didn't even know, it is officially sold out. So that anybody who didn't get a chance to get in on it or can't make it, I apologize. It went way quicker than even I thought. Amazing. We'll still be able to meet up at the game. However, if you are going to that Dolphins game, do not hesitate to let us know. Make sure to hit myself up, Rico up, hit us all up and let us know if you're going to the game. We still want to make sure we get to meet everybody that's going to be there. The tickets for that event, though, are gone. So, Laura, I'm glad you beat the buzzer, got it in. Going to be an absolute ball. The AFC East roundtable event, week 3, Bills-Dolphins, Thursday night football. Sweet tickets, live show at the tailgate. All you can drink, all you can eat. It's going to be a blast. And we're a little over 100-ish days away from it being here. Awesome stuff. So speaking of being here, the only person that wasn't here for OTAs this past week was a guy that I don't think shocked anybody in terms of seeing him on the absentee list. The Bills had every single player in attendance for voluntary OTAs, but one prolific name. And that's the name that we don't know if he'll be on the list throughout the duration of next season or the future of the Buffalo Bills, depending on what happens in terms of the contract situation, in terms of why he's sitting out to begin with right now, hoping to get that new contract. James Cook, the only no-show for voluntary OTAs. Before I talk about the James Cook aspect of things, I want to talk about who is there right now. And in particular, I want to talk about Josh Allen being there. You might look at it, many might look at it as, hey, look at Josh Allen's got a $380 million contract. He wants to win more than anybody. No kidding, he's there. I like to make a point when moments like this happen to recognize, as Pierre has famously coined, who we have. I want to remember who we have in moments like this. Now, I'm watching videos of our old pal Stephon Diggs out on the boat doing some nefarious stuff that everyone's talking about on Twitter today. You know, I'm seeing Aaron Rodgers still sitting around, hey, taking my time. Going to make a decision whenever it feels right. Maybe I'll join the Steelers in mid-August, whatever feels right. Josh Allen doesn't have to be there. Coming off the MVP, one of the highest paid players in all of sports, A-list celebrity. We know what he's got in his bag. He doesn't need to prove it. Hell, he's getting married soon here. I think it's within a couple of weeks here. Josh Allen's got a lot going on. He's got a lot going on. And these are voluntary sessions. And Josh Allen, locked in. He's there, getting reps in with Elijah Moore and Josh Palmer, who we'll talk about in a little bit here. Getting locked in already for another crack at trying to go and make a run here, another crack at winning another MVP. It might seem like it's nothing. Yeah, Josh Allen, the face of the franchise, the quarterback, the leader. Yeah, he's got to be there. Of course he's there. What else would you expect? He doesn't have to be there. And in reality, if he wasn't there, I guarantee you, everybody online would say, oh, who cares? And I got to be 100% honest with you. There's part of me that would be like, it would kind of be like, man, that doesn't seem like that's Josh Allen. Kind of seems out of character. But then again, I would sit and just say to myself what I just said to you. MVP, unarguably top 3 quarterback in the league. We know exactly what he is. I don't think a couple of missed voluntary non-padded practices is going to change my view on how I think Josh Allen's going to be slinging the pill around in 2025. But it's just the fact that he's there that I think speaks a lot to who he is, and it's exactly what I praise about him all the time beyond what he does on the field. I just think Josh Allen is the exemplary quarterback in every facet. And not everybody is like that. There's guys that I think are even better at stuff like this than they are on the field. Like I think, for instance, Dak Prescott is an all-podium quarterback. Great representative, great face of the franchise for the Dallas Cowboys. For a brand that's as worldwide and famous and under the spotlight and faced with scrutiny as much as the Dallas Cowboys are. And even though Dak Prescott probably hasn't played to a caliber in which he's earned being the highest paid quarterback in the NFL like he currently is, you can't question the guy's character or the way he carries himself or the way he represents the Dallas Cowboys. He's terrific at it. Josh Allen's just as good, but he's also the MVP on top of that. And it's really rare that you're finding both of these qualities, all of these qualities under the same umbrella. It's incredibly rare. And I know it seems very insignificant, and I know it seems like it's nothing. Josh Allen at Bills practice. That is not a headline. And no, you're right. It's not. But I still think it speaks to exactly who Josh Allen is. And like I just mentioned a second ago, if he missed it, would it be the end of the world? No. But it would feel out of character. And that's why him being there feels second nature. That's why you don't even think about the fact that he doesn't need to be there. He could easily skip it, and it really wouldn't be that big of a deal. I just think it speaks a lot to not only him as the person, but also to him as the competitor more than anything. Yeah, he's making a point to be there. He's the face of the franchise. He's the biggest thing Buffalo has had since the invention of the chicken wing. Nobody wants to win more than him. Think about how bad you want to win and I want to win. Think about how bad we want this team to succeed. Magnify that by a factor of 1,000,000. And that's where Josh Allen's mindset's at. And he's not letting a moment go to waste. And I love the idea. I love the fact that he's out there for the voluntary sessions. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Already getting reps in. Already looking as good as he always has. Getting ready to rock. Getting ready to go and get it done. Couldn't talk about the voluntary session without mentioning that because I just do think it matters. Is it the biggest thing in the world? No, but it's something. It's something. And I think that there's so many fan bases that would kill for that. And I'm not just talking about an all-time talent on the field. I'm talking about fan bases that would kill to just have some respectability at the quarterback position, would kill to have their franchise carried in a positive light everywhere their face goes. Think about how many franchises right now would just do anything under the sun to get that. And it just goes back to the laundry list of examples we've been given in the past that I try to never let go unnoticed. You got to enjoy it while it's here. because it's just, when it's gone, I don't think you're ever going to get it to where it is now. I mean, even if you got another all-world at quarterback, are you going to get another all-world character? The Bills hit the lottery here. And once again, it's not this, oh my God, I mean, how is ESPN not leading with this on the 8 a.m. Sports Center that Josh Allen's at OTAs? No. But it's just a little something that stacks on top of another little something, on top of another little something that really just kind of culminates, piles up, and continuously lets you know to remember who we have. All right. James Cook, not in attendance. The guy playing behind Josh Allen, the guy who led the league last year in total touchdowns, is not at OTAs. And maybe this would have been a little less anything if maybe even one other player missed. I thought it was kind of crazy that he was the only player to not show up. Couple of ways to look at this. Interested in your guys' thoughts as well. Make sure to let me know in the comments how you're reacting to this situation. I know we've talked about the James Cook situation a ton because, and luckily for us, it is the biggest source of drama that currently surrounds these Buffalo Bills. And sign me up for that any day of the week and twice on Sunday. If the most dramatic thing the Bills have to deal with is their star running back going into his fourth year looking for a contract, if that's the worst thing they have to deal with, I would say your franchise is clicking on all cylinders. I would say you put yourself in a pretty damn good spot. Because in reality, this is about as headliney, clickbaity as it gets right now for the Bills. And that's exactly what you want. I mean, I was thinking, I'm trying to think of storylines for Hard Knocks. And the only storyline there really is that in terms of maybe getting people to view that would be, oh, did you hear James Cook's not showing up or this or that? And what's the deal with James Cook's contract situation? I mean, that's it. So let me know in the comments what you guys think. When you saw this, were you stunned by it? Mad about it? Do you not care? Here's how I see it. I think there's a couple of different ways to look at it. And I understand both sides, by the way. And this is how I've been throughout this whole journey with James Cook. I understand both sides. I understand Brandon Beane and the Buffalo Bills side, and I understand James Cook's side. I really have no dog in this fight. I hope at the end of the day, we reach a mutual ground here where you get a deal done where James Cook feels like he probably could have gotten more and Brandon Beane feels like he probably could have saved a little more. That's the telltale sign of a great deal. When both parties walk away from the table and they both feel like they could have done better, probably a good sign that the deal was fair. That's what we're hoping for. But right now, it feels like we got two opposite ends of the table here. Brandon Beane's on one of them. James Cook's on the other. We're hoping to get to the middle of the table. But as of right now, we're on two opposite ends. Couple of ways to look at this. One, it is the voluntary session. As I just said, Josh Allen didn't need to be there. You could really argue, unless you're a rookie or an unproven guy, where it would be just foolish to not show up. If you're a proven player in this league and you don't show up to voluntary OTAs, Adam Schefter's not going to throw out the most liked and retweeted tweet of all time when he reports that you didn't show up. It is what it is. Right? It's voluntary. I keep seeing that word thrown out, and it's fair. You don't have to be there. Let's look at it from that angle. James Cook's biggest asset is his body. That is ultimately the reason why he's in the league, why he feels like he deserves top of the market pay, why he's gotten to a point where he's probably earned the right now to not show up. That's his biggest asset. His health and his body, especially going into a year where he's getting paid by somebody. If James Cook goes into 2025 and has a season that's even slightly similar to that of last year, he's getting paid, whether it's by Brandon Beane or it's somebody else. He will be making top of the market money or close to it. There is going to be a team out there that is going to open the checkbook up if James Cook once again cracks 1,000 yards, and is right around the top of the league in total touchdowns. So I get it. You just saw Joey Bosa tear a muscle working out. Tears a muscle, working out, and now he's out until training camp. You can get injured walking down the steps. You can get injured walking down the road, down the driveway to get your mail. You can get injured getting out of bed. Get injured getting in the tub, whatever. You can get injured doing a hell of a lot less than going out and running around in an NFL practice setting, whether you're padded up and hitting each other or not. I understand protecting your biggest asset here, and that is your health. And that is your ability to go into the year top tier. James Cook's probably looking at this and he's saying, I want to do a couple of things here. One, I want to send somewhat of a message. I want to let it know that I'm not just going to show up to the voluntary stuff when I'm not guaranteed a contract for the foreseeable future, right? I want to make sure that I'm not putting myself in harm's way in any capacity. I already assume the risk of getting hurt going down to get my mail and getting in the tub and walking down the stairs and getting out of bed. I don't want to heighten that risk going to a practice session that, by the letter of the law, is voluntary. I get that. That's why I've also said I get why he wants to get paid the amount of money that he does. All of us, we're working. Would you say no to more money? And if you felt like you were owed it or deserved it, would you go out of your way to try and get as much money as you possibly could? Most would say yes. I've argued that I think, and you can look at this with any job, I think the situation matters a whole lot. More so than I think a lot of other people do. Yeah, the money matters. You're working to cash a check at the end of the day. No matter if you love your job, hate your job, somewhere in the middle, no matter if you're making no money or making $1 gazillion, you're working that job to cash a check at the end of the day. So 99.9% of people would not say no to having that check get cashed for a higher amount than a lesser amount, especially if they feel like they've earned it and that they deserve it. However, if you're at one job where they treat you great, Fortune 500 company, it was on the list of the top 10 companies in the country to work for. You guys are killing it. You're killing it at your job. Your colleagues are killing it. You're going to be fairly compensated. You're not going to be the richest guy on Wall Street, but you're going to be doing just fine. The situation that you're in right now, the job that you're at, they recruited you in. They hired you. Things have gone great. You've had tremendous success. And in all likelihood, if I go somewhere else, I am going to make more money. Yes, of course. But is the situation going to be as great? Is my surroundings going to be as great? Is this company going to be doing as well as the one that I'm leaving? Is the leadership going to be as good? Are the top guys going to be as good? And the answer, probably not. If you value where you work and what comes with that, not as much as the amount of money you're making, but enough to make you consider staying and taking less as opposed to leaving and taking more. If you are in that situation, then I think it makes sense. I think it makes sense to stay. That's kind of where I come from at times. But if I was working with somebody at this company and they were in the same situation I was in, and they said, I'm leaving because I only have so much time to make as much money as I possibly can. I want to retire early. I got kids that I got to put through college, whatever. I want a yacht. I don't know. Priorities are different for everybody. And if that person that I worked with told me he's leaving for greener pastures, literally, you're not going to see me giving him a hard time because I totally understand it. It's just a different way of looking at it. People value things differently on a gliding scale, right? If he wants to make the most money possible, then he's going to have to perform at the top level this upcoming season. So not reporting to OTAs, to me, I just don't find it to be the most appalling or crazy or worst thing in the world. Now here's where it starts to get interesting. when you do see him not show up to OTAs, the voluntary sessions, you can look at it like I just kind of painted there. All the reasons why you wouldn't, and all the reasons why it's really not that big of a deal. Okay, fine. But it does open up the book for you to take a deeper look at what could be coming down the line here potentially. Him missing voluntary OTAs now makes you sit around and question what the long play is here. And when you do have the mandatory sessions coming up in a couple of weeks here, mandatory minicamp for the Bills starts June 10th. If James Cook does not show up for mandatory minicamp, then the fines start rolling in. It's no longer voluntary. You no longer have the luxury of skipping out on it without too much questioning. You no longer have the luxury of skipping out on it without it affecting your wallet. You go into the voluntary session starting on the 10th and you don't show up, a litany of things happen here. One, it becomes a headline. It becomes breaking news, and it becomes a massive story. Because James Cook's putting his money where his mouth is, almost to a point where I couldn't wrap my head around it. Not under contract, not making the most insane amount of money in the world in terms of the NFL landscape, and cutting checks to the NFL, paying fines off in order to try to make even more money. It's been done in the past, and it'll be done in the future. But that's when it starts to get interesting. Right now, it's not all that interesting. I think, if anything, it might have been expected to some degree. Why would James Cook, who's seeking a new contract, was the only player up for one that didn't get one yet, why would he willingly show up to the voluntary session? I mean, when you think about it, once again, back to the work analogy. If your work hadn't paid you yet, and they're having a weekend barbecue, you're there Monday through Friday grinding, and they're having a weekend barbecue where you got to go and hang out with your work colleagues on a Saturday, and it's not mandatory. I got that thing going on. I got that thing to do. So-and-so sick. My kid's got a, he's got that game. He's got a Quidditch match. I get it. But you start not showing up to your 9 to 5. You start not showing up on Monday, on Tuesday. People at work, you weren't at the barbecue. They might be like, "Hey man, you missed it. It was great. So-and-so, Jim, he drank 13 Diet Cokes. I've never seen anything like it." And then Susie ate 14 hamburgers. We kept saying, oh, Susie, you're going for the record. It was great. And you're sitting there like, "Oh yeah, it sounds like the best time ever." You didn't miss much, and you didn't lose a paycheck over it. You skip the barbecue, but say you don't show up to work Monday. You don't show up to work Tuesday. You don't show up to work Wednesday. Well, then your colleagues are going to be like, "Hey, dude, what's going on, man?" The boss is saying, you're not going to get paid here. Your job's on the line here. What are you doing? You're going to start hearing it. James Cook doesn't show up to the mandatory session. That's going to be major news. I'll just say it right now, I would be stunned if he didn't show up. Because no matter what James Cook does to me right now, and this is where I'm going to get to the second side of this situation here. No matter what James Cook does here, I don't think it's swaying Brandon Beane. I just don't see it. This is why when he did skip out on the voluntary session, I understand it almost primarily from the perspective that is, I'm not trying to go out and practice and potentially get hurt. And for those who would say, well, it's just a non-padded practice and it's just, it's really nothing. Like I just mentioned, Joey Bosa pulls his muscle, working out, nothing to do with NFL style contact, NFL style play, right? It happens. You can get hurt doing way less. So I get that. But if his whole goal here was to send a message to Beane. Unfortunately for him, I think that message is going to fall on deaf ears. Brandon Beane is not going to be swayed into paying James Cook a year early or paying him top of the market money after having not done it all the way up until now, just because James Cook didn't show face at the voluntary session. I also feel, however, that Brandon Beane's not going to do that if James Cook doesn't show up to the mandatory session. The Bills have the leverage here, and that's the thing. The Bills have the leverage. Next year is when they will not have the leverage. This year they do, because James Cook gets fined into oblivion for every mandatory session, practice, game that he misses. And at that point, James Cook is hurting James Cook far more than he's hurting the team. And that's where I'd be stunned if he decides not to show up, because I think that he's doing that for nothing. Him not showing up isn't going to get Brandon Beane to open up his checkbook instantly and get this done. So to me, I would hope James Cook, from his own, just looking at it from his perspective, putting myself in his shoes, I would hope he's cognizant of that. Because I just think you're lighting money on fire if you don't show up to mandatory sessions and beyond that. It would be light years crazy if we get to training camp and he's still holding out. Now, you could do a hold in, really, where you're showing up, because based on the letter of the law, you just got to show up. The Bills, if James Cook's on the roster and showing up, he's going to be the starting running back. He knows that. So he knows I don't have to go to training camp and go 110% here. I'm on the roster. I'm starting week 1. So I can show up to training camp, not get fined, but I'm not doing that extra push-up. I'm not running that extra sprint. I'm not running back, an extra session after practice. I'm not going in on every single starting rep here. I'm just not. Maybe I'm not doing anything. I'm here. I got to be here, and that's that. You don't want to play me week 1? That's on you. You still got to pay me. You don't want to play me? You got to pay me. You don't show up, though, they don't got to pay you. In fact, they not only aren't going to pay you, you're going to be paying them. And that's where the Bills have all the leverage here. And that's why I think it would just be astonishing if James Cook approached this situation holding out and really only making matters worse for himself, I think. Now, we'll find out in a couple of weeks here. You let me know in the chat, but I have a feeling that the majority of you are with me in the sense that it would be quite shocking if he didn't show up. Walter says, I respect not showing up at all over showing up and doing nothing while everyone is working. Well, I understand that sentiment, Walt. I get that. I totally get it. You're going to show up and not do anything, just stay home. I get that. We're talking about the financial ramifications here. That's why you do it. And this is the way players have been doing this as of late. I'm pretty sure this is what Nick Bosa did when he was trying to get his contract from the 49ers. It's called a hold in. You show up so you're not paying fines, but you're not going balls to the wall. And where I understand where you're coming from the respect element of things, I get it. But you could also argue that the other argument from James Cook's side would be, well, hey, they don't respect me enough. They don't respect my game enough to give me a new contract. So it's a two-way street here, right? And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, this is how it's set up. And as much as you don't want a guy showing up doing nothing, this is their job at the end of the day. And there are massive financial punishments for not showing up. And the more you don't show up, the more that punishment accrues, and the more that it's just, you're really putting yourself in a tough spot, especially when you haven't even been given a second contract. Some guys do this way later in their career. James Cook, he's making great money in the eyes of all of us. He's not making great money in the eyes of the NFL world. He doesn't have as much money to light on fire as somebody else who's going into their third contract, killing it, looking to get paid. If you've already been paid, it's a lot easier to relinquish some of that money in pursuit of making even more. Right now, James Cook hasn't been paid. And I don't think he has, or at least if I was him, I don't think I could stomach the idea of lighting money on fire in a situation where I don't think what I'm doing to light that money on fire is going to change my current situation. Brandon Beane's at where he's at right now on James Cook and the contract, whether or not he shows up. That's how I see it. He's going to be staunch on where he's at. Brandon Beane, that is. He is going to be locked in on how he's approached this situation, whether or not James Cook shows up. And I think that James Cook's got to be aware of that. Because if you don't show up, and then all of a sudden you're going weeks into this and nothing's changed, well, then you're in a real tough spot. And that's once again where the Bills have the leverage here. You don't want to show up. All right. I mean, yeah, it sucks for us. We'd love to have you out there. Led the league in touchdowns last year. We sure could use you. But we also know that as you're kind of putting us in a tough spot, you're putting yourself in a much tougher spot. And, we're fully aware of that. Next year is a whole different ballgame. All right. Next year's a whole different ballgame. He has another killer year. James Cook can go wherever. Or they got to tag him, which would be probably 15 plus million, or they got to pay him. Then James Cook has the leverage. This is why I've been on this argument that I have always felt in his situation, he's a year early on this. There's no incentive throughout the league, unless you're maybe a Saquon Barkley or a Derrick Henry, what feels like a shoe-in Hall of Famer, unless you are the 0.001% of the 0.0001%. Unless you're that, then there really is no major incentive based on how the NFL currently views running backs and how they pay them. There is no major incentive to get out in front of that as opposed to waiting to the last possible minute. I mean, I look at the New York Giants situation. They had nothing. They still have nothing. Saquon Barkley was the New York Giants. This is why letting him go made even less sense to me. If you had a Josh Allen and you let Barkley go, at least you could say, well, Barkley's one of the best we've ever seen, but we have our franchise quarterback. We're still in a solid spot. We still have a face of the franchise, a guy that's going to sell tickets no matter how great we are. And I think we're going to succeed on the field based on who we have at the quarterback position. The Giants had nothing and still have nothing without Saquon Barkley. Letting him walk was insane to me for as much of a business, from as much from the big business perspective as it was from the on the field perspective. And they waited all the way to the end and let him walk. And if that doesn't prove to you that these teams, when it comes to running backs, are just willing to wait it out and or move on, then I don't know what will. But I think he shows up June 10th there. Now, if he doesn't, well, then this gets even more interesting. It gets far more interesting. Because if he doesn't show up for the voluntary or the mandatory OTAs, then there's no reason to think he'll show up for the training camp. If he's willing to prove that point, then no contract gets done between June and training camp, then your guess is as good as mine. Anything could happen. But as of right now, I think it's not a big deal. I think it's expected. I understand entirely where James Cook's coming from, but it's certainly something we're going to keep an eye on here and watch as it develops. I think if I have to call my shot here, he shows up, plays the whole year, and then as soon as the season concludes next season, that's when this starts to get really interesting. And it's really all going to be based on what James Cook does in 2025. It'll be at its peak of interesting if he has another repeat year of 2024, because then that's when it gets really intriguing. Brandon Beane, you're not going to pay the guy that was towards the top of the league for the last 2 seasons. You're not going to pony up the money here. Or if James Cook has a regression, maybe not massive, but if he plays down to the mean, then it's interesting from the perspective of, hey, James Cook, do you still think you're worth top of the market money? If you do, where are you going to get it from? If you are getting it, are you willing to go to one of the lesser teams in the league? A lot of elements in play here, but I think this time next year, that's when the intrigue reaches its peak. Not now, unless he holds out. But that would certainly shock me. So those are the two things that came out of OTA that weren't the greatest, right? Joey Bosa being hurt and James Cook holding out. But let's talk about some things we saw out of camp that were great. By the way, my friends Jim and 420 Lady are in here. 420 Lady saying, are you a football genius? I'm not a football genius, 420 Lady, but you know who is? Frank and Jimmy. Frank and Jimmy. Those are football geniuses. We would be nothing if it weren't for Frank and Jimmy. If you're wondering what I mean by that, I have no idea what I mean by it either. Inside joke between me, 420 Lady, and his other 12 YouTube accounts that he has. Frank and Jimmy. So, positives coming out of the voluntary OTAs. Let's start with the wide receiver position. One of the most controversial positions on the team. One that's constantly talked about, constantly discussed, constantly debated. The Buffalo Bills wide receiver room. Is it good enough? Does it need to get better? Do the Bills need to add? No, they're fine. They got Josh Allen. One thing we know for certain is that it's been very different since the departure of Diggs and Davis, where you're now seeing a lot of younger guys. You're hoping that become the face of the offense alongside Josh Allen, and you're seeing a lot of veterans rotate throughout the roster, hoping to make an impact in the later stages of their career, while the Bills also get the most out of them in the late stages of their career. Got the most out of Mac Hollins. Was sad to see him go, but certainly got the most out of him. Led the league in touchdowns on the team last year. Amari Cooper looking like he's not going to return, but I think he was a massive difference maker for the Bills at that midseason point. Lost one regular season game after adding him. Yeah, I know he got injured. Yeah, I know the stats were nothing special, but it did feel like there was a vibe shift on the Buffalo Bills offense when they added him. The Bills have had success adding these vets. Cole Beasley, an all-pro. John Brown, we're still waiting for one of these John Browns to show up again. That's how good he was with Josh Allen in his early years. And we're starting to see early in OTAs here, a couple of other veterans the Bills added this offseason look like they could be finding that resurgence in the later stage of their career because of the arm, the talent that Josh Allen possesses. Obviously, unpadded practices here, pretty much going up against ghost defenses, but it was reassuring to hear that Josh Palmer and Elijah Moore were two of the standouts during Buffalo Bills voluntary OTA sessions this past week here. Love to hear it. Because like I mentioned, this is a position, especially for the Bills, that is just constantly debated and constantly talked about. And I know it's OTAs, and I think someone on TV, I had it on the background earlier, they made a great point. This is essentially the equivalent of analyzing batting practice in baseball. Not a whole lot to take away from this, but it's the only thing we got right now. It's the NFL. We love talking about it. We love watching it. And right now, the only thing going on in the NFL is voluntary practice sessions. So we're going to overanalyze it. We're going to talk about it. And I'd much rather be overanalyzing and talking about positives than stuff coming out of camp that's negative. I'd much rather be reading the headline that Palmer and Moore are standouts as opposed to, hey, first practice into the OTA session and Elijah Moore was falling all over the field, couldn't keep his feet, couldn't beat his defender, and Josh Palmer had 5 drops. It goes both ways. Even though the OTAs right now, they don't mean that much, they don't really matter, and we're going to forget about them a month from now. You'd much rather get that positive sentiment coming out early than you would negative. And we're getting that positive sentiment from these two wide receivers in their first sessions with Josh Allen. So we'll start with Palmer here. And the big takeaway on him was that it just looked like he had his route running down pat. Looked like his route running was different and just overall it seemed to separate itself from what the Bills have had, where it just seemed more concise, more fluid. And that's something the Bills have kind of struggled with here. With wide receivers being able to beat their defenders one-on-one down the field, get open for Josh Allen. We haven't seen the most prolific route running outside of course, Stephon Diggs. That just really hasn't been in the cards for the Bills, and they've played it in different ways. the big takeaway from Palmer from his early sessions with Josh Allen here is it just looked like his routes were really locked in, really down pat. Joe Buscaglia of the New York Times said that he wouldn't be surprised if Palmer plays a lot in 2025. He said, quote, "It would not be surprising if he plays quite a lot in 2025. He and many of the other people that were on site watching these practices go down, had glowing things to say about Josh Palmer, his route running ability, and his ability to make a noticeable impact instantly on the offensive side of the ball." I'm excited to see what Josh Palmer's got in the tank. Really excited to see if it is better than what we got out of Matt Collins and Amari Cooper, because that's really all you need. That's why I never shy away from wanting to add more and more guys to this this wide receiver locker room. It's not that I don't think the Bills can succeed with what they have right now. It's not that I don't think the Bills can do more than succeed. I think the Bills, as it stands, with Josh Allen, hard for me to listen to an argument where they're not going to be a top 10 offense. But the reason I'm all in favor of continuously adding is because I just am doing so based on the analogy of if you throw a dart at the board 1,000 times, eventually you're going to hit a bullseye. The more darts you throw, the more chance you have to hit. Maybe they don't have to throw many more darts. Maybe Josh Palmer is one of these hits. He is that John Brown, and he gives you more than Amari Cooper was able to. He gives you more than Matt Collins was able to. Because if that's the case, then the Bills are in terrific shape. The Bills are in phenomenal shape. They're already in great shape as it is. As I talk about a lot, it just feels like with the Bills, a lot of it comes down to an extra 5 to 15%, depending on where you're looking on either side of the ball and whatever positional group you're looking at. I've said that I think if the Bills defense can get 15% better, whatever that looks like, 15% better on the defensive line, 15% better at getting after the quarterback, how are they not the best team in the AFC? If the Bills wide receiver core, based on how good Josh Allen is, based on how good this offensive line is, based on how good their running game is, if this wide receiver core can get 5% better, 10% better, what does the team that just scored 31 points per game in 2024 look like with even that much of a marginal increase? And that's why it's exciting to see veteran guys like Josh Palmer stand out instantaneously. And I look forward to see what he brings to the table. But as of now, looks to be real positive, and the route running seemed to be the big standout for those who were in attendance. They got to see it in action. And of course, Elijah Moore, the other big addition for these Buffalo Bills in the wide receiver locker room this offseason. The thing that's standing out on his side of things is the speed. Now, of course, it's been a long time since he's ran the 40 at the combine, but he was one of the faster players in that combine coming out. And he might not be as fast as the sub 440 time, that 4.40 time, say that 3 times fast. Might not be that fast today, but he's still got some juice. And that seemed to be evident to those in attendance watching the practice. Being able to break out of his routes really quick, still has that burst, still has that ability to accelerate, separate himself with that. And the vibe was that he just has a quickness that's going to allow him to make bigger plays than maybe some of the other guys that the Bills have had in the past here. Even though he's not that Olympic style sprinter anymore, like maybe he once was, still got that juice. And I think you're getting a combination here where you're getting increased route running and increased speed. If you uptick the speed in the route running on the Bills offense, which is 2 things that they've lacked at the wide receiver position, speed and route running ability. If that increases, then that's where we get to that 5 to 10% increase that I was just kind of referring to. If you add elements that weren't all that great, or you just boost up those elements from what they currently were or what they once were, that's how you get that noticeable percentage increase that might not be a world of difference, but for the Bills, it ends up being, because all they need is a thin line of difference in order for them to obtain and achieve the ultimate, which of course would end up being a world of difference. Teams that are at the bottom of the league, when they need guys to turn things around, they need them to bring the world of difference. The Bills already have the foundation in place. Once you are so close to making all the difference, you're only a few pieces away, only a couple of things away. The teams that are rebuilding, numerous pieces away. They need guys to come in and be that immediate massive difference. The Bills do not need that. They need marginal differences defensively more than anything. But marginal differences on the offense in the positive direction. When you scored 31 points per game, when you had an MVP at quarterback, when you were rattling off consecutive 30-point games like it was peewee football, what does that look like? Even if it's just that much better. Because that much better at the top of the league, that's when you really solidify yourself as potentially the best offense in football. So you're getting that quickness from Elijah Moore. You're getting that smooth route running ability from Josh Palmer. And even though it's just, a tiddlywink session basically in Buffalo to kick the year off, brings a smile to your face reading that as opposed to the other things you could read at this time of year. Once again, going back to the situation that the Bills are in. Damn sound one. And I don't think we're reading too much into this. We know that the Bills have not had the best route running ability at the wide receiver position, and they haven't had a whole lot of speed. So when you see those things pop off on your screen, when you're scrolling your Twitter feed, checking in on what's going on at OTAs, it's those things you're looking for. They got Khalil Shakir that can get yards after the catch and break tackles. They got the ability to run the ball. They have Josh Allen. Now, if you're seeing things that are run-of-the-mill comments like, oh, he made a contested catch or, it was great at, I don't know, breaking tackles, whatever. Like, yeah, it's great, but is it bringing something new, different, and needed? And I think when I think of the wide receiver room, when I'm seeing speed and when I'm seeing route running, those are the things that pop off to me. Those are the things you want to see, and those are the things we are seeing. I'd recommend you go. I know I mentioned him a few times on the show here. Joe Piscaglia put out a, what is the word I'm looking for here? A blog, if you will, a blog or an article that did a great job of recapping the OTA session. And a lot of great stuff in there, including some comments on Moore and Palmer that I think were really encouraging. And I'm excited about those two, for sure. I'm saddened about losing Mac Hollins. I really am. I'd love to retain Amari Cooper. Would have loved to have just really added anybody who you think would be a major impact. But up until now, I mean, we can say that the Bill, Brandon Beane didn't sit on his hands. Palmer and Moore were not on this team 6 months ago. So they have added. And if it ends up being what we're seeing early here, where you are getting faster, you are getting better route running, which leads to more open guys down the field, creating more for the others around him as well, then it winds up being exactly what you were looking for. So encouraging stuff to see. Hopefully it continues heading into training camp, and then, of course, beyond that. And then last point to note, the one guy that seemed to stand out in terms of younger players and in terms of the defensive side of the ball, really encouraging stuff here, Cole Bishop. Cole Bishop injured a bit last year, right? Which kind of tabled him from becoming the starting safety, paved the way for DeMar Hamlin to get that spot, and then he never relinquished it. Reports are coming out that Cole Bishop, going into year 2, the second-round safety from a season ago, looks like he is taking strides towards becoming potentially the starting safety for these Buffalo Bills this upcoming season. It was the highest draft pick the Bills have utilized on a safety, I think maybe ever. And they have a lot of high expectations for Cole Bishop. Rightfully so. You spend a second-round pick on a player, you know exactly what the expectations are. But one other thing that can kind of lead you to the idea behind the expectations that Beane and McDermott do have for him, a lot of people thought going into the 2025 draft here just a month ago, a lot of people thought that safety might have been high up on the Bills board. Hell, Pierre, when we were doing our mock draft, he had the Bills going safety round 1. there were plenty of people who thought that the Bills would prioritize a safety in the earlier rounds. Now, they did go safety, but it wasn't until round 5. And whether or not you were happy about that, didn't care, mad, whatever, I think it does speak to the faith that they do have in Cole Bishop. We don't need to go out and spend another top-tier pick on a safety. We like what we have with our year 2 guy here who we got in the second round a season ago. And based on just these early sessions here, it looks like he really has made an impression on not only those watching, but feels like the team. It just felt noticeable based on reports how much different he looked, even in just an unpadded run-around type session. Looked really quick, confident, and you love to hear it. Because if he can end up hitting, that's one more piece there that adds to that increase defensively that I think is going to be the world of difference. We were going over our top 10 most important players to the future, and Rico and I both had a 6-4 ratio in terms of defense. This was why. Because we think that right now it's more important for the defense to take that next step and get better currently in order to capitalize on the window that Josh Allen and the offense have opened up for them. I think it goes without saying, really. But I do think it stands out when you kind of put it in perspective and talk through it. Because when you think of the Bills, you think of the offense. But when you get beyond Josh Allen, the O-line, Khalil Shakir, and then you throw James Cook in there if you want, depending on how you view the contract situation. Once you get beyond that, you realize that the fate of this team could very well lie in the defensive ability to back up what Josh Allen and the offense are doing on the offensive side of the ball. And if Cole Bishop, going into year 2, can be a mainstay at safety, you're making a hell of a stride towards closing that gap that currently separates where the Bills offense is and where the Bills defense is. So that was one thing that I thought really stood out. That was really encouraging. And once again, just an early step forward for this defense. And right now, I have a lot of excitement surrounding how I view this defense going into the year. And this Cole Bishop element is just one little thing that you add on top of it. Once again, it's just an off-season voluntary practice. But it's one more thing to add to a list of things that I think have happened this offseason that have you really encouraged and excited about this defense. For as much as the Bills have invested in this defense this offseason, you can't help but be excited to see how that's going to pay off this upcoming year. You also can't help but be excited about the idea that if it does pay off as early as this upcoming season, how much of a difference that's going to be and ultimately what that's going to culminate in. Right now, I am very excited to see what this defense is bringing to the table in 2025. With the amount of additions made, with the amount of young guns on this defense looking to come in and change the face of what it looks like on that side of the ball, I am stoked to see exactly what that looks like. And if it is able to get on track, get right, like launch pad as early as this upcoming season. Not every one of these guys is going to be able to do that. It'd be foolish to think that all of the draft capital the Bills invested on the defense is all going to nail at once, right? All going to launch at once. One or two of these guys, Cole Bishop taking this massive next step, maybe getting even more out of Greg Rousseau, Ed Oliver, guys that are already currently the foundational pieces of this defense. It's really all you need. And it's really going to be all the difference, I think, in terms of where the Bills were, are, and what they could potentially be and what they could potentially achieve should the defense just be able to take that next little bit of a step. All right, what are we at? Hour and a half. Touched on a ton of stuff here. Talked about Joey Bosa, his injury. Talked about James Cook, no show for the voluntary OTAs. Talked about two vet wide receivers the Bills added this offseason shining, and the emergence of Cole Bishop and the excitement surrounding what he could be bringing to the table in year 2. To close things out, real quick, talk about what Sean McDermott had to say about Hard Knocks. He was asked about it during OTAs in a media session, and naturally everybody wants to know what their feelings are about it because we get to sit home and watch it. They're the one that's going to be in the eye of the storm. They're the ones that are going to be mic'd up and in front of the camera. And even though there's cameras everywhere all the time and everything's mic'd up these days and you're not going anywhere without somebody knowing what you're doing. It is a whole different ballgame when you do have a dedicated weekly television show that every football fan's going to be tuning into, especially when you're the only one of all 32 teams to have that type of coverage. Sean McDermott was asked about it, and I thought his comments were interesting. He said, Sean McDermott, looking for the quote here. Sean McDermott said, quote, "The real challenge to us is the authenticity of who we are and building that critical trust that is so important to building a good, healthy relationship among players and among staff." He'd go on to say that, where's the one quote I'm looking for? Here we go. Quote, "That trust piece is huge in terms of bringing the team together. That glue part is going to be challenged because of that third component. Whether it's a microphone, a camera in different rooms, in different conversations, but we are who we are, and that authenticity piece must stay intact." I thought that was interesting because out of all the things that Sean McDermott could have said, all the comments he could have had, I did think it was interesting. The one point of emphasis he made was how it's going to be an adjustment to be as authentic as they typically are with the cameras in front of you. And I think that's such a human response to have, because I think all of us, if all of a sudden we were thrusted in front of cameras and mic'd up and every move we were making at work was being filmed, you might act a little differently too, even though you didn't intentionally mean to act different. You got a camera in front of you. You're mic'd up. It just feels different, and you subconsciously act different. I wonder how much different it'll change from the first episode onward, because it might feel really different and new and kind of awkward early, but I feel like you get used to it. The crew is hidden, right? They're not all up in your face all the time. You do some interviews, sure, you're mic'd up, whatever, but I feel over time throughout the show, you get more and more used to it. You get more and more comfortable. And that's where your more authentic, true self starts to come through. What's good for the Bills is that I think that the way that they operate is towards the top of the league. It's one of the league's best run organizations as it stands right now. Their authentic self, they should have no problem in showcasing that. I would be worried about being my authentic self if I was in front of the camera and mic'd up running and coaching one of the league's bottom feeders. Hard Knocks typically features a team that's in the bottom half of the league. And I can't lie, when I watched Joe Shane blunder the Saquon Barkley deal completely, you're in the room with him, watching him lose their franchise player, watching him lose the face of the franchise, really the only player putting fans in the seats, to your division rival. You're in the room watching it. It was painful. And it had everybody talking about it. And from what I could see, I thought it warranted a potential firing the year after, just the way that whole situation seemed to be handled. We got to watch that on display. I was somewhat shocked to see that Joe Shane retained his job after that whole situation. And then, of course, the year the Giants had. I would be certainly... I don't know. I would be a bit weary if I was running one of the league's worst franchises, or certainly one of the league's bottom 16 franchises, and I had a camera and a mic on me at all times. But when I'm the leader of one of the league's best, when I'm running one of the league's best, I want the cameras on me. I want the microphones locked in, capturing this. Because we're doing it right. This is how it should be done. We're the standard. So my authentic self has gotten us to this point. I should have no worry about people seeing that, because this authenticity has allowed this team to get towards the top of the league. If I was running one of the weaker franchises in the league, then that's when I start to get concerned. Is my authenticity going to be questioned by the mass media? Is what I'm bringing to the table going to be a talking point on radio shows and television shows? Is this spotlight we currently have on us going to illuminate my weaknesses that have maybe led to this team not being as great as we hoped it would be, or that it should be or could be? The Bills are in a whole different situation. I understand maybe not feeling the ability to be entirely yourself because you know that you're being filmed and you're being recorded and whatever else. But if I could say anything to Sean McDermott, it would be, I wouldn't worry about it at all. What you guys have done up until this point has been exactly what needed to be done, what should be done. And I would be almost excited to put that on display and showcase it. And that's why I think this is going to be a whole different type of Hard Knocks. We're getting to see underneath the hood one of the league's best and see how a flourishing organization is run. When in all the years past, we've mostly just been given the inside look on a lot of dysfunction. So once again, another reason to be excited about Hard Knocks, in my opinion, getting to see that authentic version of Bean and McDermott, and really all of them, everybody. And, you know, McDermott even pointed that out. He said that he thinks it's in one way or another, he pretty much said it's really cool that the fans get to see an inside look at what happens. And that's really the best thing here. I don't think it's a competitive advantage for anybody playing against the Bills, watching Hard Knocks. You got 7 years of film on Josh Allen. You can either stop him or you can't. And good luck, because in all likelihood, you can't. I don't think 5-6 episodes of Hard Knocks is going to be the tipping point for other teams to get a leg up on the Buffalo Bills. But it's going to be awesome for us fans to get another look at this awesome team in a way we really haven't seen before. Cannot wait. That kicks off August 5th, I believe. So a little over a month away, which is awesome. One more thing to look forward to. One more thing that's paving the runway to the season, which is less than 100 days out. Speaking of out, I'm out. That's going to do it. An hour and a half in the books on a Wednesday night. It was great hopping on with you, and I appreciate each and every one of you who tuned in this hump day evening to talk a little OTAs, Joey Bosa injury, James Cook, no show, the showing out of a couple vet wide receivers newly added to the Bills offense, Cole Bishop stepping up, lots of good stuff under the belt on this Wednesday edition of the Smoke Break. Be back with you Friday evening with Rico to talk even more Buffalo Bills, and I hope you join us then. But in the meantime, once again, thank you so much, as always, for tuning in this evening. On your way out the door, like button if you could, subscribe button if you could. Enjoy the rest of your week, folks. Talk to you soon. Much love as always, and go Bills.